Morning, boys and girls. This is Dr. Madison, your music teacher, and I have a book I'd like to share with you today about a composer named Beethoven. This is Beethoven, and the book is written by Wendy Lynch. Part 1. Ludwig van Beethoven was born in Bonn, Germany in 1770. His father made him practice the piano every day. He wanted his son to be a great pianist. Beethoven went to school until he was 11, and when he finished school, he could not spell well or do math. He spent his time learning music instead of studying. Here's Beethoven practicing the piano, and here's Beethoven coming home from school. When he was 17, Beethoven wanted to move to Vienna, where many famous musicians lived. But he had to stay and earn money for his family. He did this by teaching music. When Beethoven was 22, he moved to Vienna. Here he began to play concerts in public. Most concerts were for rich people, but Beethoven wanted everyone to be able to enjoy music. Here's a picture of Beethoven teaching. And here's a picture of Beethoven at a concert. Beethoven soon began to make up his own music. This is called composing. He liked to go for long walks and compose music in his head. He wrote it down later. Beethoven was not a very neat person. His clothes, his hair, and his home were always messy. He liked to spend his time writing and playing music, not cleaning. Here's Beethoven out in the pasture. And here's Beethoven writing in his messy house. When he was about 30, Beethoven began to hear a buzzing noise in his ears. He was worried that he was going deaf. Doctors gave him hearing aids to help him hear. Beethoven went to live in a quiet village near Vienna. Here he wrote a famous letter to his brothers. The letter said that he was very lonely and unhappy, that he was going deaf. Here's Beethoven moving to the village, and here's him writing a letter to his brothers. Beethoven returned to Vienna and began to write more music. He wrote the Pastoral Symphony. Beethoven wanted it to remind him of a quiet place. Beethoven wrote love letters and music for women he liked. Für Elise is a piece of piano music. It was written for a beautiful girl. So this is near Beethoven's house outside of Vienna. And here's Beethoven and a beautiful girl. Even after he became deaf, Beethoven still wrote music. His choral symphony has a song called Ode to Joy. When it was first played, people threw their hats into the air because they liked it so much. Boys and girls, you know that Dr. Madison sometimes sings with an orchestra. I've sung Beethoven's Ode to Joy at the Academy of Music, at the Mann Music Center outside of Philadelphia, at Carnegie Hall in Saratoga. And I think that's all. But it's a very famous piece of music. Oh, I sang it at the Robin Hood Dell with the Blackwater Orchestra. Beethoven died on March 26, 1827. Schools were closed and 20,000 people went to his funeral. They thought Beethoven was a great musician and composer. Here's a picture of Beethoven's choral symphony, also called the Ninth Symphony. And here's the people going to Beethoven's funeral. Part 2. There are many ways in which we can find out about Beethoven. We can visit the house in Bonn, Germany, where he was born. Now it is a museum. This is Beethoven's desk, which is inside the house, and you can see one of the hearing aids Beethoven used. So here's his house in Bonn, Germany, and here's his desk. Beethoven wrote many letters when he lived in Vienna. Here is the letter he wrote to his brothers when he was feeling sad. And when Beethoven became deaf, he asked his friends to write down what they wanted to say to him in a notebook. And we could read these notebooks today. Here's the letter he sent to his brothers. And here's a notebook that his friends wrote in. Here is a manuscript written by Beethoven. It shows how Beethoven wrote music on the page. There's a separate line of music for each instrument. And there are many ways for us to hear Beethoven's music. You can go to a concert, you can listen to his music on a CD, or even look it up on YouTube. Here's a manuscript of his music. And there's a picture of a Beethoven CD. Many artists wanted to paint Beethoven. This painting shows us what Beethoven looked like when he was 50 years old. He's holding a piece of music. And this monument in memory of Beethoven still stands in Vienna, Austria. Only his name is written on it. Ludwig van Beethoven. Everyone else knows who he is. Here's his portrait when he was about 50. And here is the statue. Boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed that story about Beethoven. Have a super fantastic day.